going to use the mic.
Jonah.
Alright, hey everybody. My name is Jonah Foley. I'm a junior, and I'm here to tell you how the human race just might end up killing itself off. So first what I want you to do is imagine a village. Let's call the village Jonah Stand. So, there we go. So, there's Jonah Stand. So this village, it's a little enclosed, it's got a wall around it, there's no way over the wall. This village has one stream, one farm, and 10 houses, just enough to support the current residents. So what happens when the villagers start reproducing at a rate that the village can't sustain? What if the villagers knew that in only a few generations from now, that their village couldn't support the population? See, Jonah Stand is encountering the exact same problem that the Earth is. This is our population growth. That's not good. So, we have a population growth rate that's out of control, and we have very finite resources to tackle the problem. It's been estimated that our maximum population our planet can sustain, at maximum efficiency, meaning like everybody becomes a vegetarian on the planet, which is not going to happen, is 10 billion people. Our current population is 7 billion people. We are expected to reach 9 billion by 2050. That's when most people in this room are around 50 to 52 years old. We're going to hit 10 billion at around 2100. So, what can we do? Well, first option is we can create a child cap per family around the world. That's not going to work. Two main reasons. One, if you look back here, most of the population growth is happening in underdeveloped countries. So what that means is that the governments there, which are not as strong, the police forces, which are not as able, won't be able to do anything, so the law can't actually be enforced. On the same merit, the developed countries have a multitude of civil rights groups and religious groups that would fight to the bone against any kind of limit on the number of children they can have. So what's the next best option? Increase women's education. It has been proven that in third world countries, such as Mali and Niger, that if you increase the women's education rate, it reduces the fertility rates. But how do you fund a worldwide educational system without raising taxes worldwide and causing a political firestorm? The issue is you can't. So, what can we do? What do we have left? Well, the answer to that is actually really simple. All we have to do is look at what Jonah Stand would have done. So, the villagers, let's say we wait some time, like, I don't know, 10, 20 years, and the next generation comes along. And so the villagers start to notice something. They start to feel the effects of their lack of resources. People are getting hungry, and the village is becoming less stable because there's competition for resources. So what the villagers do is they look around their little enclosed village, and they notice that there isn't enough to sustain them. They can't possibly live on what they have. So the villagers stop looking inside their little village. They use the sounds they hear, like running water, and they smell the fruits on the outside, and hear the cries of the animals, and they notice that what they need lies beyond the wall. So they try different things, countless trial and error, and eventually find out that what they can use is a ladder. So somebody invents a ladder, and they go over the wall. And so once they go over the wall, they find rivers flowing with water, they find forests full of fruits, they find caves full of minerals, they find boars and beavers and bears, they find what they need to survive. The Earth can do the exact same thing. So, this is called a space elevator. This is our ladder. What it does is we take a little base on the Earth, has a massive cable, like miles and miles and miles long cable, and puts things in geostationary orbit. So, why is this important? Cost. If you have a space elevator, the cost of putting 1 kilogram of material into a geosynchronous orbit, that's what that little orange line is, which is way higher than where our satellite's lying now, goes from $20,000 per kilogram to $500. That means putting a person in space on just fuel alone goes from $3.2 million to $80,000. That's kind of huge. So, sorry, no card here. All right, so this is where it gets a little tricky. Now we're going to fast forward, I don't know, say 100 years or so. Now what happens in the lunar colonies we have, because we already have a space elevator, we've already gone up there, we've already made everything set up. The lunar colonies, they start to grow, and they start to become independent. Now there's not just mining operations and corporations, there's a government, and there's technological development, and there's a culture, and there's like a new civilization that lives there. That's going to happen on the moon. And at the same time, if we go back to Jonah Stand, same thing's going to happen to the people there. They're going to create Foleysville. This is the little colony that they made. Because what they did is they went over the wall, and they found the resource that the village needs the most. Maybe it was fresh water, or new food, or even just some like rocks they want to make copper out of. So what they do is they make the village there, and they send the supplies back and forth using new technologies like a convoy. And what happens is that they start to become more and more independent over time. So the next step is to go even further in time. Now we're going 200, 300 years. At this point, they're less so like colonies and almost like independent kind of like city nation states. What happens is that the differences in population shrink. The cultural differences between the host state and the new colonies grows very wide. And the dependence, this is the most important part, the dependence on the initial population like Earth or Jonastan goes down a ton. Because now these new colonies are becoming self-sufficient. And if they're self-sufficient, they don't need the host state. But the host state, they still want the exports from the new colonies. So they kind of have a bit of a to and fro about who gets what. What this does is lead to a very bad part. What this does is lead to a war of independence. This is the exact same thing that happened in America 200 years ago. Over 100 countries in the past 200 years have had a war of independence. One side wants freedom, one side wants control. It happens a lot, actually. So, the two kind of wars. The first war is the war the villagers are going to fight. What's going to happen is they're going to get the biggest fighters, the strongest guys, they're going to get the biggest clubs, they're going to get the sharpest knives. They're going to kind of like run at each other in an open field and see whose army wins. Whichever army wins gets what they want. So Jonastan, they get control of Foleysville and their exports and they go back to restart the cycle. Or Foleysville win. And what they do is that they get freedom, or they can even take Jonastan if they want because it's kind of free reign now. But the thing is that this war doesn't really matter. There's a small war, maybe 10, 20 people die, and now the environment isn't that different. The humans now live in a bigger space. There's more technology, there's more culture, they have tons of opportunity, tons of future. Nothing's really set in stone yet. This is very different to what happens with our big old space war. This space war. This is a war to basically see who has the biggest gun. What the Earth is going to do is they're going to shoot missiles or lasers or whatever technology they have, technology that we can't even understand. It'll be so destructive and so advanced right now. Like, just keep in mind, our population growth rate is the same as our technological growth rate. So that same graph, the little exponential growth rate, exact same thing for technology. So the missiles we have now are going to be probably smaller, undetectable, and probably do a lot more damage. So they're going to use those little tiny missiles. What they're going to do is they're going to target certain things on the Lunar Colony. First, they're going to go after life support, and then farming, and then power generation, and just force a dependence back to Earth. The Lunar Colonies have a very different job. What they're going to do is they're going to take weapons of mass destruction. Way scarier than the weapons we have now. And they're just going to try and kill as many people on the Earth as they can. Because their job is to make the war so costly for the Earth that the Earth won't keep fighting the war. But seeing how valuable lunar colonies are, not only just the money, but the fact that those are the stepping stone into human advancement into space, what that means is that the death toll is going to have to be in the hundreds of millions, if not billions, for the Earth to even consider backing off. So, what this does is basically give us kind of an ultimatum type scenario, where the stakes become a lot higher. Because in the village war, they're just throwing rocks at each other. But in the big space war, they're shooting bombs at each other. And see, the thing is that sticks and stones can break some bones, but bombs can level us in. So what happens is that we fight this war for independence. And maybe this is the final war. Maybe this is the big, scary war that happens. Or maybe it's another war for independence. Or maybe it's just more expansion. But what is inevitable is the fact that we're going to keep growing, and keep fighting, and keep expanding, until the point where our technology becomes so dangerous and so deadly that we actually can't keep the cycle going. We reach the end of the line. And that's the point where a big, giant, glorious leap into space, that's what happens. That's when we are going to land feet first into oblivion. We're all going to die because we developed too much and we didn't know what we're going to do. That's that.